Welcome back. Lori Horton is with us this St. Patrick's Day with a delicious traditional Irish apple cake. Good morning, Lori.
Good morning.
Fantastic.
Oh my gosh. You know, I really labored on what recipe to do today, being here on St. Patty's Day.
Yes.
I decided to forego the green for no reason, mint for no reason, Lucky Charms recipes, and really did a deep dive into what do we have as a traditional dessert in Ireland?
Oh, how fun.
Right?
That's great.
So this is something you really would see served at a family meal or anything like that in Ireland. It's a really great one and not as complicated as it sounds. So what we want to start with though is preparing the pan, and this is really important. This recipe for our batter, for our layering, is going to be perfect in a 9-inch round. So find that one in the back of the cabinet. But we want to layer it with parchment paper, and I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a tip on this. This is just a folded parchment like I'd use for cookie sheet.
Oh, sure.
Here's my folded corner. I'm going to lay it on the bottom of my pan, about in the center, cut off that excess, and then just bring it in a little bit more because we're measuring to the inside of the pan. And then just like when we used to make snowflakes in elementary school,
there you go.
We have a fairly round piece there to put in the inside of our pan.
Wonderful.
So we're going to have a little bit of excess butter from one stick, and I'm just going to take a piece of that and I'm going to butter the edges of my pan first. And of course, since it is St. Patrick's Day and this is a very Irish recipe, I did the splurge and I went with the really good butter. So for those of you who bake, you know, if you know, you know, that is so worth it for the really good recipes. But holy cow, it's a splurge. These days it's really bad when you have to splurge to put eggs and butter in your baking, right? So I've got this really nicely coated with a good layer of butter. Then I'm going to go ahead and lay that parchment in the bottom, and then kind of just with what's left on my glove here.
Get that parchment too.
Yeah, I'm going to put a little bit on top of the parchment as well because we want it to peel off nice and clean as well after that cake is baked. So once that's really well prepared, we're going to set that aside. And believe it or not, it's going to take just a few extra minutes. I'm going to kind of prepare the batter between our segments today. So it's nothing out of the ordinary as far as how we do it. We're going to cream our wet ingredients like usual with any batter, mix our dry ones, and then kind of bring them together. What's great about this is our batter is really thick and it's kind of a spice cake, right? Goes well with those apples. And then we're going to peel and cut some Granny Smith. So more like what you would use in an apple pie. It's almost a cross between an apple tart and an apple cake, but
that sounds
so good. And again, easier than you would expect. The big thing is make sure you allow some baking time because this is going to bake for like an hour.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's going to
a very long time.
It's going to be a little bit
pretty dense, that batter.
Exactly. So I'm going to get that mixed up. Like I said, between our segments, I'll come back so that you guys can see just how thick it is and ready to go, and kind of our layering process before we pop that in the oven.
All right, wonderful. Sounds like a plan, Lori. Thanks. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Lori Horton is back with us, showing us her traditional Irish apple cake recipe. Now we buttered our pan, and you've been hard at work during our breaks. Talk to me about what's in this bowl.
So what I did in between our segments today was I went ahead and got our batter ready to go because we did take a little bit of a process getting that parchment and buttering our pan, making sure it was going to turn out nicely. So we started with creaming our basic ingredients, butter, sugar, eggs, nothing out of the ordinary. Whisking our dry ingredients, the flour, the baking powder, the cinnamon, salt, all of those things, and then incorporating them like we would for any other cake. I just wanted to point out this is a very dense, like sort of sticky, borders on what you would kind of look at and think of like a cookie dough almost. So it is going to be a very nice, thick, moist cake. So we're going to lightly spoon this into our pan, and again we started with a 9-inch round, so you could maybe go an 8-inch, but it's going to be a little bit different as it bakes. So if you've got a 9-inch, I would really recommend sticking with that because it's going to come out just the perfect height. We want to get all of that in there, and then I've got a nice angled spatula right here that is so handy with this type of a batter because we want to spread it around. It's not going to just naturally roll in there like a thinner one. So I'm just going to push that all the way out to my edges, make a nice even layer. And then we're going to set this aside because we've got a couple other things that we have to get ready before this is going to go into our oven. So we'll get this all nice and smoothed out. So you can see I've just got an even layer. It's fairly
Looks
thin.
great, yes.
Yeah, it just looks like it might be a big cookie or something in there, right? So we do have, if you'll notice our finished one here, we have like a streusel topping on this, which is
wonderful.
so good. All I've got in here is a little bit of oats,
Okay.
flour, sugar, cinnamon, again, a pinch of salt, and then about 6 tablespoons of butter. And we talked about in the first segment, since this is St. Patrick's Day,
Yes.
this is a very traditional Irish recipe. We had to go with the Kerrygold, with the good butter. So it is worth it.
Don't want to skimp on that.
Never skimp on that. We are just lightly putting this together so that
Okay.
we get that crumbly topping. We want the butter to be nice and cold.
Yes.
That is the beauty of that Irish butter,
Right.
is it stays smooth.
Yes, it
even when
does.
it's
Just
very
watching
cold.
it
Yeah,
now,
it's
it
just
looks great.
so easy to incorporate. So we just work that together and kind of let it continue on. And then I'm going to set that aside.
Okay.
And I'm going to start on my apples. So a little bit out of ordinary for a cake is we're using a Granny Smith apple. We think
Yes.
of this more as a pie apple, but it's so perfect with the little bit of tartness and the sweetness of the cake together. And I'm just going to peel these while we go to a quick break here in a minute. And when we come back, we'll layer these on here in a beautiful little pattern, even though you're really not going
Right.
to see them because
You'll
we're going to
taste
cover
them.
it up.
Yeah.
It always tastes better when it looks better,
Yes.
right? As my grandma always said, you eat with your eyes first.
Right.
So it's got to look good. But we're going to layer those nice, thinly sliced pieces of apple on there and then cover this with our streusel. And it's going to bake for a bit.
All right, sounds delicious. Well, Lori, thanks, and stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Lori Horton is showing us the last few steps to her traditional Irish apple cake. So what's
Yes.
left?
We're just almost ready to pop this guy in the oven. So all I did during the break was I took, and I actually have kind of larger apples here,
Sure.
so it only is going to take probably 2.
Okay.
Your recipe, when you look this up later on komnewsnow.com, is going to tell you 3. So if
Okay.
you have those smaller, like lunchbox
Right.
apples, might take 3. I just took those, cored them, and peeled them, and then I've made really nice thin
Yes.
slices out of these. So we're going to just layer those in there,
Okay.
nice and even. You just want a pretty full layer around on top of that cake batter. So if you want to do a little bit more, you can, but this way they're going to soften up nicely as they bake.
Yes.
They're going to cut easily. We hope. We'll find out here in just a minute, right? But we are going to have that lovely little crisp bite
Yes.
of that Granny Smith apple in every single piece. And I know I'm thinking way too hard about making these look so pretty in here because my next step is I'm going to take that streusel topping that we made earlier and I'm just going to pour this over the entire top. So you're not going to see these at all, but I really can't help
But a
myself.
nice even layer.
It makes
goes a long way, yeah.
my OCD so happy to know underneath there it looks like that. But we're going to pour that entire amount that we made, and it does look like a lot, but you want a good even layer,
Yes.
and it's going to sort of help bind those apples together as well. So we're going to take this all the way out to the edge, and then this is going to go into a 350 degree oven.
Okay.
Again, your recipe is going to say 60 to 70 minutes. This baked about exactly 60 was all I needed.
Okay.
And it's going to be a nice golden brown on the top. You'll see our finished one here. It's one that's a little bit different to test. You can't really do a toothpick test or some
Right.
of the traditional things we're
Yes.
used to doing. So you just sort of have to eyeball it.
Okay.
But when we cut into this, as I said, we'll find out just how nice it came out. But you want a small slice. You could serve with this a little fresh whipped cream. You could dust it with a little powdered sugar. Oh my gosh.
Yes,
It's
looks
so
great.
nice. It's a really beautiful dense cake on that. I don't know how well you guys can see that. You can see a little bit of that layer of the apple slices in there and then your streusel on top. So it's so perfect. And again, we think about all of these like shamrock shake type
Yes.
recipes this time of year. Those really aren't
Right.
terribly traditionally Irish. They're sort of our Americanized Irish, which is fun. Throw the Lucky Charms
Yeah,
on whatever.
but why not go traditional?
This
Yeah.
is really traditional, and if you'll go down the rabbit hole that I did, I don't recommend it always, but you will find this is the type of cake and the type of dessert you'll find
Fantastic.
in an Irish household. So it's kind of fun
Yes.
sometimes to look at these things a little bit differently, and explore a
something
little
new.
bit
Yeah.
of those fun recipes. And again, not as complicated as it looks, but comes out very elegant in the end. So
Absolutely.
kind of nice to have that one in your pocket once in a while too.
Fantastic. Well, Lori, as always, thanks so much. And as she mentioned, this recipe will, of course, be on our website, KOAMNewsNow.com, later on this morning. Stick around. We'll be right back.